Welcome to the movement at Mainframe. This week features representational oil painter Michael Wilson and mixed media artist Sabrina Carper. Mainframe Studios is a nonprofit organization located on Keogh Way in downtown Des Moines that provides permanent, affordable workspace to artists of all disciplines. This space is a 37-year-old 5-story building that was originally a telephone company data center. Upon reopening in late 2017, Mainframe included 75 shareable studios on 3 of the 5 floors. Another floor of artists has recently finished construction, and now Mainframe is home to well over 130 artists and creative spaces and is the largest nonprofit art studio in the nation. Mainframe hosts regular First Friday events where the public is invited. The August First Friday event celebrated the completion of Critical Mass, Mainframe's 360-degree mural designed by Molly Spain. September's theme was Paint It Plein Air, which featured works created during the events at Grays Lake, Easter Lake, and the new Lauridsen Skate Park. Mainframe Studios is demonstrating an entirely new model, ensuring that artists are not priced out of growing cities like Des Moines. Here's Mainframe's director, Siobhan Spain, with an update.
It's exciting at Mainframe Studios right now because we were able to finish another floor, which means we have 131 studios now, which is really exciting. We're at capacity, we have a wait list growing, and we are fundraising to finish the project, which will be exciting to happen for so many reasons. To be able to fill them up with the artists waiting for space, but also will be financially self-sustaining, which is exciting. So the concept is to fundraise for owning the building and building it out, and that's why we can charge such low rents to artists. So our mural called Critical Mass was done to honor our main contributors, which are the Lauridsen family. They just recently pledged $1 million match. So any contributions that Mainframe Studios gets now is matched dollar for dollar up to $1 million. So anything counts, $50 or $200 or $2,000 is matched. So once we raise that money, we can complete yet another floor of Mainframe Studios and add almost 50 more studios, which we could fill tomorrow based on our wait list. We've proven our case, and it's really exciting to be able to showcase so many gifts, and people don't realize what talent is here right in front of them. And now with our mural, we're marking our territory. Art happens here in a really big way. Second floor is the final floor that needs to be renovated, and it will start renovations as soon as we have those dollars. So people ask when construction will start, and we say when the money comes in. So it's coming in small bits, but we really need the contributions to continue. You can visit mainframestudios.org and look for the donate button, and you'll have a few options there. So again, any dollar counts, and we really love our donors. It makes us connect with our community even more, the fact that we have people reaching out and really valuing the artist and valuing Mainframe Studios, which will be here for generations to come.
Let's take a short break before we look at one artist's perspective, steeped in the spirit of people and places of the American Plains. Michael Wilson is a representational oil painter inspired by classical drawing and painting. An Iowa native, Michael was born and raised on an Iowa farm and small town. Wilson is primarily a figure painter, but offers his small studies of all subjects, completed in pencil, gouache, and oil.
I'm primarily an oil painter. I'm a representational oil painter. All that means is that the things that I paint represent something, represent an object. I was born on a farm in Persia, Iowa, and raised in a small town of Persia. My earliest memory is drawing. I was fascinated with drawing. My mom kept us a constant flow of paper and pencils, and my sister and I, we would draw for hours. Like when I was growing up, there was no cable, there was no video games or anything like that. So you had endless summers of boredom and reading comic books. So I would copy all the pictures out of the comic books, and then when I ran out of comic books, I would make my own comic books. The only artist I really knew growing up was Bob Ross on PBS, if we could get PBS. And so it wasn't really on my radar that fine art was a career. So I just kind of went about my life. I joined the Iowa Army National Guard. I worked at a meat packing plant. I worked at a warehouse. And then I got a job at a print shop for an in-house insurance company. And they had tuition reimbursement. So I thought, well, I'll be a graphic designer. I started taking art classes as electives, so I knew I could get A's in all the art classes. So I thought, okay, if I get bad grades in math or something, it'll kind of even out, you know. I just fell in love with drawing and painting, and I got exposed to it. And I remember, I can still see it. I went up to the instructor's desk and I showed him one of my drawings, and he goes, hey, he goes, that kind of looks like Andrew Wyeth. And I go, who's Andrew Wyeth? And he kind of looked at me and he goes, well, he's an artist that works in, you know, the East Coast, Chet. And I'm like, in my head, I thought, he's still alive? And so, I mean, I just thought, okay, well, yeah, okay, now this is what I'm going to work towards now. So I worked for that company for 22 years. And then when my wife took a job here, I just thought, let's pull the trigger, doing art full time. And that was 10 years ago. So as soon as I got here, I found that I just started painting barns. As soon as I start working in themes, which I like to do, then I try to journal about that and figure out why I'm doing it. And I kind of found out that I was homesick, and I was trying to bring some of the architecture from my home to Des Moines, to my home, and kind of surround myself with that architecture. So I approached the Ankeny Art Center and had a show up there, and it was really nice. And then I approached Neil Smith National Wildlife Refuge and asked them if I could do a show of their bison. So I took a year and I went out and took a lot of photos of their bison in all the seasons. And I had a nice, successful show out there. And then I did a show on their elk. So I tend to work in themes. My cousin, he was going through some of his mother's stuff, and he found my great uncle's World War I memorabilia. And he asked me if I wanted it, and I said, sure, I'll take it. So I was looking through the box, and I found that he had a little notebook where he would mark the dates and little notes about his movements in France during the war. And so as I was reading through them, he would write things like embarked on the Carpathia, or bombs dropped into the trenches at night, and things like this. So all those things started just painting pictures in my mind. So in 2015, I took several years to paint an exhibit just on his experiences in World War I. 2018 was the 100th anniversary, so I painted to that, and then I approached the Cedar Rapids Museum of Art, and I had a solo show of that up there. And that show actually traveled from the Cedar Rapids Museum of Art to the Camp Dodge Gold Star Military Museum, and then down to Corning, Iowa. This painting's kind of cool. It was in my World War I exhibit. I actually tore out the page from the sketchbook. I'm just drawing circles and stick figures, basically, just to see how heads look in a certain size format, you know. And then I did a 1/3 scale drawing where I start to finalize where everybody's going to be and group people. And then that, when I start here, then I already know what I'm going to do and why I'm doing it. I hired a World War I historical reenactor to do, you know, to to pose for all the pieces. And when I started painting this shot, I kept getting like thoughts of the Tin Man. And I think it was when they were gonna go to the castle and get Dorothy, they knocked out the witch's guards and then they put on those heavy trench coats. For some reason, those World War I trench coats, and that kind of correlated the Tin Man. And then I started thinking about like a tin soldier. In the end of the movie, Oz, the guy tells the Tin Man, you know, you've always had a heart. You know, I can't give you one. You've always had a heart. And I always thought that was really cool. And then I thought of that song, I think America sings it, or Bread, where it says, Oz never did give nothing to the Tin Man that he didn't already have. I thought that was kind of cool. So it's funny how concepts and things like that gel together by just an image. Like an image can evoke those things. I love that. I was immediately drawn to oil paint. I love everything about it. I love the feel of it. I love the smell of it. I love the way it lays onto the canvas. I have done watercolor. And I started with acrylic, but acrylic to me, as far as like figure painting and being a representational painter, it's a race to dry. You know, you're racing it. So that's always in the back of your mind, is that it's drying, it's drying. So oil paint affords me some time, and I love everything about it. Most of my processes start at the sketchbook level. My sketchbook is my just free space to dump all ideas. They usually start with stick figures and things like that. I just do stick figures, gestures, and I already kind of know my theme, and I already know what kind of, you know, what I like to paint. I kind of interview myself, like, why do I like this? Why does this appeal to me? And then I try to flesh that out. And as soon as I buy into that reason, then I'm in love. Usually do like a scaled drawing where I have to nail everything, because it's a lot better to make those kind of mistakes with just a pencil and a paper than it is to start where you have, like, you know, a $50 canvas, you know, and a $50 tube of paints. So it's better to do those things there for me. But for the most part, once I get to this point, then I know exactly what I'm going to do and how it's going to look and what it's going to say. Because to me, art is just embedding thought into material. And so I'm having a conversation with this canvas. And then when I display this canvas is going to have a conversation with you. So the thought that I've embedded into this canvas, hopefully you'll pick up some of the symbols and some of the things, and some of the color choices are going to give you cues to what I was trying to say. I chose the Mainframe. As soon as I heard about it, I put my name on the list because my wife and I had done the art festivals, and I had exhibits, and I was looking for a place where I could just sell right out of my studio, and then the public came to me. So it appealed to me to have the retail space in front of the studio, and that they had their open studios on First Friday. So that appealed to me, to be able to create here and then meet the public. So you get the benefit of the art festival where the public comes to you, and then you get to meet them, and I enjoy talking to people about my stuff. But yet, it's not a nomadic gypsy life. You get to stay in one place. The theme that I'm kind of working on now is kind of a peace and love theme. During the pandemic, my wife and I were sitting on the patio, and I made a remark about a wispy cloud in the sky, and she started singing that Joni Mitchell song. You know, I've looked at clouds from both sides now. So I started I thought, oh, that's a pretty cool song. And then I started thinking about the songs from the 60s and the 70s when I grew up. So I'm kind of on a theme of figures and just kind of peace and love. So I use a lot of like hippie imagery and things like that to kind of evoke that. And you'll see a lot of like, I have my model doing like this, so then a peace sign on it, or I'll base a painting off a song like Me and Bobby McGee, where she's holding the harmonica and then she has the red bandana. Because those singer-songwriters of that era their words were so, they just conjure up images. They're perfect partners to partner with to make painting. So that's kind of the theme that I'm on now. The reason I like figure painting though is because humans are just from birth indoctrinated, conditioned into picking up cues from people. Like if I raise an eyebrow or if I gesture like this, I mean, if I painted this, you would totally get that I'm trying to explain something to you. And just a couple brushes to raise an eyebrow or move a mouth up or down. I mean, a Mona Lisa smile, that was probably, you know, maybe a dozen strokes. And yet look at all the information that that communicated. That's why I like figure painting, because people are just inherently hyper tuned in to reading other people's gestures. I will tell you what's a lot of fun, and it's not maybe a goal, but it's a mission, it's a value, is to have an exhibition and have all your work in one room, and then when people come in and look at it, and you kind of stand in the corner and you listen to the conversations, and when they pick up on something that you've worked through from sketchbook, scale drawing, even an oil study, and then the finished piece, when they pick up and they hit like keywords, oh man, that's the best. So I think the goal is just to communicate. See, an artist typically doesn't want to communicate to a crowd and speak, like public speaking. We want to talk to our canvas. We want to have that inner dialogue, and then we want to put that canvas on a wall, and then we want you to talk to it. So a lot of times people will say, well, what are you trying to say in this piece? And then the artist will say, what do you think? And that frustrates people because they just want to, they want to cut to the chase and they want to know what you're saying. But the artist wants to know how good a job he did. So he wants to hear what you're picking up, because I'm gathering information on how successful I was in communicating what I put in that piece. So a lot of people get frustrated with that, but we really want to hear your feedback. But yeah, when you say things and have key words that we were thinking when we put it in there, that's success.
To see more of Michael Wilson's work, visit these social media sites. Next, we visit with a mixed media artist who explores themes of family and conversation in the digital age. A recent graduate of Grandview University, Sabrina Carper is a mixed media artist who uses painting and fiber to explore themes of family and conversation in the digital age. She purposes found text from online forums, family photos, and symbols of both analog and digital communication to grapple with what it means to form relationships and have a meaningful connection in the 21st century.
I attended Grandview and I graduated in May of 2020 with a fine arts degree. So I joined Mainframe as an intern, and then I got my own studio here too, and it's been a really great opportunity for me to start to develop my career and figure out how to make being a fine artist work professionally, which has been really exciting. And it's been a really great space to be in, since I've gotten to meet so many other artists and talk to so many other people who are doing what I want to be doing long term. It's really exciting to know that there are people in this building who are professional fine artists and have been for longer than I've been alive. And to know that that's something that I can do is really invigorating. So I define myself as a mixed media artist or an interdisciplinary artist, which for me really means that I use whatever material I need to use to get an idea across. So the work that I make usually involves fiber arts and painting. So I do a lot of paintings and then I embroider through the paintings, which is a really unique process that does sometimes end in beautiful paintings that are just full of holes unnecessarily. But I find it really interesting to meld really textural fibers with really flat, clean paintings. I also use a lot of alcohol inks. I do some sculpture, I do some resin sculpture. So I use a lot of different materials, and the end goal for all of the materials that I use is to create work that talks about human relationships. So I'm really interested in people and the way that people relate to each other and the avenues that they use to form those connections. So a lot of my work mixes really old or antique imagery with really new digital imagery. You'll see a lot of text in my work. A lot of the text that I use is found online in internet arguments. I think those are really fascinating spaces, and so I take text from internet trolls and I embroider it onto old family photos to sort of explore how we connect with people in different spaces, whether those are family spaces, home spaces, or anonymous digital spaces. And the end goal really is just to get to the core of what it means to be a person connecting with another person. Now I'm working on a series of small sculptures using chat bubbles. I think the chat bubble is a really interesting symbol of communication. It's really easily identifiable as someone talking to someone else. And it also really directly relates to technology and the way that we interact with our technology. So I've been using chat bubbles as a symbol for the way that devices can sometimes be overwhelming. And so I've been making small sculptures that are colorful, stacked, interlocking chat bubbles to explore the abundance of notifications that we get every day and how we cope with those and the ways that they can be exciting and also overwhelming. A lot of the materials that I use are found materials, so I use a lot of found fabric, usually old flour sacks, animal seed bags, things like that. I also use a lot of found family photos, and then I collage those or paint them. And then a lot of embroidery. So I have a collection of colorful threads. I break a lot of needles while embroidering through paintings because that's not really what they're meant for. And then I also use a lot of acrylic paint and alcohol inks. I really appreciate alcohol inks because they can be used for staining as opposed to painting. So you can get really soft, delicate looking pieces, which is the aesthetic that I'm usually looking for. I first learned about Mainframe when I had my internship here, actually in my final semester of school. Before that, I didn't even know that the building was here. So I had an internship here, and through the internship, I had access to studio space. And once I had studio space outside of my living room, I really couldn't give that up. It's such a great tool to have space outside of where you live to get to make work. And getting to interact with all of the artists, especially since I work in the building for Mainframe as an organization, I know all the artists anyway, and so getting to collaborate with them in my artistic work and see the exhibitions that they've done and have opportunities for other artists to sort of mentor me and tell me how their careers have evolved has been so beneficial for my work. I've really grown a lot in the last year in terms of the work that I'm making and also my career and access to different opportunities, group shows, grant opportunities, things like that has been, it's all definitely due to being at Mainframe. Like, I wouldn't have gotten to build my career this way if I weren't here. So I'm so grateful that I got to intern here, and then so grateful that I've met so many other wonderful artists. Some of the work that I've gotten the best reception for, a series of paintings where I take family photos of people posing in front of their houses or yards, things like that. And then I cut out the silhouette of the people in the photo, and then I replaced that with images, microscopic images of computer parts. And it's really an exploration of space, physical spaces versus digital spaces. So where do the people exist in those places? Do they exist in the digital spaces that they interact in? Do they exist in the physical spaces that they live in? Is it both? And then I have been embroidering through those paintings as well, sort of making a field of pluses stitched between the physical space and the digital space. And they're just really interesting visually. And then I really love talking about them because it really starts to get at the core of what my work is exploring, which is where do people interact with each other and what's the difference between real and technical spaces. And then I've started working a lot more abstractly recently as well, trying to imagine what technical spaces look like without real imagery. So sort of abstract, colorful stains and stitching. And then also abstracting people to think about how we relate to each other more generally. I've started a series of paintings, I call them jelly bean paintings, but taking these sort of blobby jelly bean shapes and imagining them as people and how do they form relationships with each other. And those are kind of fun and colorful and bright, and it's really exciting to think about how people can be imagined more abstractly and places can be imagined more abstractly. I just can't imagine doing anything else. When I first went to school, I went for education. I've always worked with kids. I thought that's what I wanted to do my whole life. And I started taking art education classes. And I loved the art part so much more than I loved the education part. And I've always loved creative spaces. I grew up in a really creative household, so it just makes so much sense to me to make work, to talk about art, to be in artistic communities. And that's what's so great about Mainframe is I really feel like I get to live my dream here.
To see more of Sabrina Carper's work, visit these social media sites. Thanks for watching this episode of Movement at Mainframe on MC22. In the following weeks, we'll be featuring more Des Moines artists and their unique talent. For more information on the artists, visit mainframestudios.org.